So I came across this through the BBC. Watch, boat fuel leak causes disruption at salmon farm. So work is ongoing to limit pollution in the Sound of Mull, and they describe how this, yeah, thanks for that. Essentially what is known in salmon farming is, you finished? Are you finished? God, she just loves adding her essence to any of my bits. Listen, still last word freak, yeah? Roaring away. So anyway, work is ongoing in the Sound of Mull to limit pollution following the sinking of a fish farm landing craft. So the Julianne, operated by Scottish Sea Farms, sank on Thursday near the company's Funery, I'll go with that, salmon farming site. So the Scottish Environment Protection Agency, thank you for that again, Bella, said steps were taken to limit the spread of oil, and it was not aware of any fish being harmed. I suspect the salmon will be, but you know, maybe I'm wrong. So plans are now being put in place for the removal of the remaining oil and the recovery of the 15-metre or 49-foot vessel off the Ardnamurchan Point or coast. Now, I have said over the years that one of my many experiences in life was to work in salmon farming in the late 80s between college courses. And I had some fond memories and some not so fond memories. And at the time, I was working for a salmon farming company called, now what was the name of it? Because there was at least two on the island at the time. One was called Golden Sea, which I was working for, and another one was called at the time Marine Harvest. I don't know if these still exist now, I don't know. But it was an education, be assured of that. And of course, when I did more research into the Julianne and found that the vessel, the Julianne, which is, well, essentially a 50-foot landing craft, really. And the diesel, or as they say, oil fuel, capacity of that vessel is 3,810 litres. Now, normally, for example, when it comes to water, 1 mil of water equals 1 gram. In fact, I double-checked on that. But yeah, faculties are still about me, and I remember that distinctly. So, for example, a litre of water would equal a kilo in weight. But when it comes to diesel and water, the weight difference, well, diesel works out about 17% less weight per, as regards equal volumes between water and diesel. So it's roughly about 4/5 of what water weighs. So with that in mind, in a wee calculation, you are still talking just under 3.2 tonne of diesel being on that boat. Now, in no way am I saying that for a start it was filled to capacity with diesel, or that all that diesel will spill out. But and they're very, very useful boats. Be assured of that. They are what's known as a displacement vessel. So it has a limited speed in the sense that no matter how much or how powerful the engines you put into that vessel, it will only ever reach a certain speed. So it apparently, its performance is 9 knots. So it'll probably chug about at maybe sort of 7.5, something like that. It has a 158 horsepower engine. And in many respects, it'll be fairly fuel efficient compared to many other styles of boats. But yeah, it'll still be fairly thirsty. Be assured of that, because it doesn't mention the weight of the boat here. But I can't imagine it being light. There's a good chance it's possibly made out of aluminium. but I don't know if that's the case. It doesn't even say whether it's steel or aluminium, but and it'll have what's called what I used to know as a HIAB, which is maybe a make of one of these hydraulic cranes. The deck machinery in this case is a pal finder crane, and I'm sure it will lift a fair old weight. And for fish farms, by and large, what these things do is they'll come into wherever the base is that's, near water, and they'll have what's called manitos, these four-wheel steer, heavy weightlifting machinery that will essentially take out pallets of fish food to boats like this, and using that crane will then drop them off at various fish farms, or nets or cages, etc., etc. But yeah, that's and you could say, what the hell am I doing this vid for? Seriously. But I would also say that in every aspect of fish farming, when it comes to salmon farming, it's pretty toxic, truly. I remember in the late 80s using, we were given this chemical, and honestly, I've tried to look for it since, online. And from memory, it was called Nuvan, or Nuban. And it was so toxic, this stuff, that even if you got it on your skin, there was a good chance, in fact, it literally set in the side of these container bottles, which had floats on the top of the bottle, just in case it went into the water. This stuff was pretty toxic. But, under medical advice, may need a tracheotomy. Seriously, I remember distinctly that, because I thought, what is in this stuff? And quite literally, I'm not joking you, something between, I think it was something like half a litre to a litre of this stuff would treat something like 40 ton of salmon, delice them. That was what it was. It was a supposed delicer. Now, even at that time, back then, I remember distinctly, Golden Sea Produce were looking at more eco-friendly solutions to delicing the salmon, because it was a major problem with salmon farming. Now, the Norwegians, who were highly skilled at it and known for it for many decades, would try and avoid the sea lice by regularly moving the cages around fjords, etc. And as I said, it's a subject you could go into much more detail, without a doubt. Another one, but in fact, I remember at the time, I'm sure it had some involvement with a company called Norsk Hydro, which from memory I think was a Norwegian company. I could look into the background, the detail, whatever else. But the fish food itself stank. I mean, really stank. You got used to it because you got used to the smell within days. But say, for argument's sake, after a shift, maybe going out with your buddies, everybody in the pub would just smell you. You might not smell it, but by God, yeah, it wasn't very sociable. And the other thing was, at the time, I remember the fish food supplier, now things may have changed a lot, but it was BP, subdivision of BP, that was actually creating this salmon farming fish food, And the toxicity of what was in it, because long after I left, and, we are talking the late 80s here, but there was a lot of research done into these farm salmon, that the chemicals that were involved in absorbing into their body, whether it was through various methods, but I suspect not least of which was the fish farm food itself. It's highly toxic stuff. And I went into the secondary aspect of salmon production, in the sense that I worked for a company roughly about 1990, where it was about the processing of essentially farmed salmon, and that in itself was a very, very interesting experience. And I remember much of that I had to doubt it. I'll be honest. To the point that, see now, I would not thank you for salmon. If it's farmed salmon, I would not touch it. So I'm not demonizing all salmon. If you can get wild salmon and that's still available, and there's some markets abroad that, for example, service countries like the UK and wild salmon. It's not vastly expensive, and of course there's people out there who absolutely enjoy wild salmon, but well, all you need to do is look at certain parts of Scotland and even going fishing for wild salmon. Yeah, that suddenly becomes massively, massively expensive. Anyway, I've got nearly 11 minutes here. What a waffler. But yeah, so apparently they're going to refloat that vessel because I'm sure it won't be cheap. There's no two doubts about it. It won't be cheap. And I'm sure after an engineer or two's at it and all the rest of it, it will be back working. But I can only assume, and maybe this isn't correct, but it's got to be something like a seacock or whatever else, something that's through to the water, through the hull. Whether it's for cooling of the engine, I don't know. But obviously that's, failed and, well, yeah, heavy displacement boats will go down kind of quickly if all of a sudden you've got a hole in it. Yeah. So yeah, in summary, sorry to hear that happen, but when you think about sustainability and all the rest of it, salmon farming wouldn't be top of my list as regards sustainable or even healthy for you or for the environment. And just before I go, talking about that farm salmon food, there was every now and again divers that would come and go into the nets and the cages and take out the dead salmon, any dead salmon, and they would put them into what's called deading tubs. But oh my God, that's when any uneaten food that goes through the net to the seabed, the whole area of seabed is quite literally dead. There's nothing living in these areas, none at all. It's so toxic, the whole thing about salmon farming. And if anybody comes back with, oh, but it does so many, it offers so many valuable jobs to remote areas. Well, I would argue there is many other ways of creating wealth in these remote areas for communities without the need of salmon farming. And you could still be doing wonders in these areas through, even creel fishing, so many other things, dive fishing, you name it, for shellfish, lobsters, crayfish, all the rest of it. There is far more sensible, sustainable ways of doing it while making a damn good living without this crap. And I'll speak to you soon.